Om Swastiastu. Hello everyone. Today we will present our student project, and the title of our student project is Practical Guide to Search Medical Literature. Next. So this is our members in the group.
My name is Pandit Putu Karina Chandra. Introduction, Chapter 1. Background. Literature is reading material that can be used as a basis for reference when making scientific or research works. However, with a large and growing number of published studies available and with the abundance of inaccurate information, the search for medical literature can be a challenge. Because of that, a practical guide is needed that will be an easy guide or in searching for this medical literature itself. Next slide, please. Problem formulation. First, what is the definition of practical guide to search medical literature? Second, why is practical guide to search medical literature important? Third, how is the application of practical guide to search medical literature carried out? Fourth, how is the implementation of practical guide to search medical literature in Indonesia? Next slide, please. Purpose. First, to understand the definition of practical guide to search medical literature. Second, to understand the importance of practical guide to search medical literature. Third, to understand the application of practical guide to search medical literature. Fourth, to understand the implementation of practical guide to search medical literature in Indonesia.
My name is Cokorda, Istri, Agung, and Scotty, and I'm talking about significance. So, through these papers, writer and readers can understand the importance of systematic search for the right literature. With definitions, user classification, methods, and implementation, writers and readers will certainly able to put into practice a practical guide to literature search. Next, please. And Chapter 2 about contents. The first one is definition. A literature search is a systematic and well-organized search of previously published data to locate a large number of high-quality references on a certain topic which is conducted for a variety of reasons, including as a phase in the research procedure or as part of academic assessment that has main purpose to establish a research topic by reviewing the available literature with an eye towards gaps that can still be filled with additional research. Next, please. There are three types of literature. The first one is primary, secondary, and tertiary. Primary literature is an authentic result from scientific research and contains data from analysis in the laboratory or field with concentrate and new evidence, while secondary literature is a literature that concludes, interprets, and evaluates data from primary literatures and contains no new evidence. The last one is tertiary literature. Tertiary literature provides summarized information from the primary and secondary literature. Next, please.
Okay, my name is Putri. I'll bring the topic about importance of practical guide to search medical literature. The first, good research requires a search for literature that can assist in formulating research questions and planning research that take into account the imbalance that is still acceptable for further research by evaluating the available literature. Second, interesting and familiar topics are usually raised as research problems, and research approach can be done by narrowing the problem, searching, and analyzing the existing literature. Third, systematic literature search are an important component of the systematic review search process. The fourth, the function of the system on a topic by describing a clear and well-captured methodology. And the last point is to answer the question at hand. The reviewer will follow a strict protocol that will verify the review process is carried out in a systematic manner with strict methods for identifying, critically assessing, and synthesizing significant studies.
My name is Ayu Karralika Raidinjana, and I will deliver the topic about the application of practical guide to search medical literature. First, we will discuss about the users of this practical guide. Medical literature is used to provide optimal patient care approaches to addressing, diagnosis, treatment, harm, and prognosis. And it begins when medical students and doctors face a clinical dilemma. And there are 5 steps of evidence-based practice, which start with identifying the problem, assessing the best evidence, and then critically appraising the evidence to finally find the results and how we should apply the results to patient care. Next slide, please. The first step, identifying the problem. The philosophy of evidence-based medicine is the integration of best research evidence with clinical expertise and patient values. As a specific approach to patient care, there are 2 basic principles. First, evidence-based medicine posits a hierarchy of evidence to guide clinical decision-making. Potential evidence include potential empirical observations and psychological experiments. Second, evidence alone is never sufficient to make a clinical decision. By values and preference, which are the sets of goals, expectations, tendencies, and beliefs that individuals have for certain decisions and their potential outcome.
My name is Margareta Jesselyn. When we are doing research, there are few acceptable and agreed way to obtain the best evidence. First, we can do browsing. Medical students and doctors subscribe a number of medical journals which are relevant to their practice. They keep up to date by reading that relevant to their practice. The browsing approach using medical writing and secondary journals, such as New York Academy of Medicine, keeps a list of available secondary journals is many health principle. Second is problem solving, doing by defining specific questions raised when caring for patient, then consulting the writing to resolve this question, and lastly by doing background and foreground questions. Most situations acquire to understand the background properly when addressing foreground issues. We can use medical writing to solve the foreground questions. Next. We can use 2 types of review, narrative and systematic type. Narrative review often include a discussion of one or more aspects of the disease and address a number of question types. When looking for a review of the disease, often find narrative review useful. We can also use systematic review for any summary of research that attempt to address a focused clinical question in a systematic manner. Features distinguish narrative review from systematic review are shown in the table. Next.
My name is Fricillia Wijaya and I will explain the critically appraising the evidence. This table 3 shows users guide how to use review articles. The first are the results valid? And the example is, did the review include explicit and appropriate eligibility criteria? The second is, what are the results? The example is, are the results the same from study to study? And the last is, how can we apply the result to patient care? The example is, were all important patient outcomes considered? Next. This is a table 3, shows guide for selecting articles that are most likely to provide valid results. Followings are therapy, diagnosis, harm, and prognosis. Therapy. The example is, were patients randomized? And the second, diagnosis. The example is, was the patient sample representative of those with a disorder? And the third is harm. Did the researcher show similarities in all known outcome determinants or adjust for differences in the analysis? And the last is prognosis. Is there a representative of sample of patients? Next.
Okay, my name is Ketut Gayatri Karuniaputri. I'm going to be explain what are the results. There's a difference for most systematic reviews recommended in patient, exposures, outcome, measure, and research methods. As the result, whether medical students and doctor can expect similar results across the patient, interventions, and outcome. Next. How should medical students and doctors apply the results to patient care? Okay, as we know, literature is recognized as an important component of the systematic review process. It entails a systematic search for study, informing review about what was done to discover and how the result or conclusion. Even though literal search can be time confusing and exhausting, but there is developing research topics and are writing based on the research. The following are the steps in our technique for planning and developing a multi-database search strategy. Next. Oops. How to conduct a proper literature search. First is determine a specific question. It should be well-defined and specific and try not to ask questions that's too wide. Second, describe an article that can provide an answer. And third, determine concepts and the component of the question. The key concept is subject and component. Then as a guidance, we could use PICO or another comparable framework. Next.
My name is Putu Cecilia and I will be continuing the explanation of the method used in a literature search. So the first one is determine the elements employed, where the number of elements should be remain as low as possible, or else by adding elements will increase the chance of missing relevant references. Use the scheme that I will be showing you in the next slide, where all elements are ordered by their specificity and importance. Next one is select the suitable database and interface to begin with. We can use Medline and Embase are accessible via variety vendors and interfaces, which why we recommend you to starting with those and also begin with only one database or interface. The next one is create a text document to record the search process. We recommend establishing and developing entire search techniques in a log document rather than directly in the database, and then copy it and paste it. Next slide. This is the scheme that I was talking about. Next slide, please. Next is find the acceptable index terms in the first database source. We recommend limiting the initial terms to the most crucial and relevant terms. You can also add the generic terms and also allowing the influence of the number of hits. Next one is find synonym in the source. Terms must be searched as free text keyword in the title and abstract fields, as well as their associated source terms. A tree structure is also used to organize the source term. The lastly for me is variation in search phrases should be added. Truncations allows the searcher to look for words start with the same word stem and include a specific code to replace 0 or 1 character. Thank you.
My name is Agung, Istri dari Anggreni. I will continue the methods part. 10th is use database-specific syntax. This method generates a basic search strategy meant to retrieve some relevant reference on which a more comprehensive search strategy based on optimization. For the methods, the first one is create single line first, then type the syntax and employ present proximity structure with a parenthesis and separate thesaurus phrases from the free text terms and pay attention to position of the cursor while adding terms. The next is search engine optimization. This method frequently contributes valuable addition terms to our search strategy and as a result, additional reference to our search results. For further explanation can be seen on the screen. Next is analyze the preliminary results. We have to check the initial results so that the data we get are relevant and the reference to be included in the study are correct. Next slide, please. And then check for mistakes. Sometimes clue can be detected on the number of results. The most common mistake is omitting the Boolean operator. It's a good idea to have the search keyword reviewed by a clinician or researcher who is familiar with topics. And then translating other database. Search multiple databases to collect many references and rapid translations utilizing Microsoft Word's find and replace method. Translation from the entry terms to miss terms for midline in Ovid identifies new terms. And the last one is test and repeat. Checking searches for recall can be done when the authors or the SR have selected which reference should be included. And the search strategies should be modified to retrieve the results that were not found by it.
My name is Fiona Natania, and I'll give you tips and tricks on literature search. There are 3 tips and tricks. The first one is split search into different parts. Differentiate search from the important to the less important parts, then search from general and then to the specific, so we could get an easier expected result. The second one is word choice. We could search the different word options and try to change the plural into singular or singular into the plural. And we could also try to use truncation and compound words. The third one is search for more than one databases. Its database supplies different literature and offering legal and patent literatures. Next, please. And now is the implementation of practical guide to search medical literature in Indonesia. According to the General Chairperson of Central Board of the Reading Interest Correctional Movement or GMPB, the Indonesian people's reading interest rating is still below the average for other Asian people. The habit of students watching television or using the internet for fun has shifted reading or writing activities that should be done by students. This evidenced by the abundance of news and information without a clear source and misunderstanding due
to the lack of literacy culture in the community. Based on the most literate nation in the world study conducted by Central Connecticut State University in March 2016, regarding public interest in reading, Indonesia was ranked 16 out of 61 countries. Indonesia is one rank below Thailand and above Botswana. In fact, in terms of infrastructure assessment to support reading, Indonesia's ranking is above European countries. Next.
My name is Ariela Kudisarjo. Okay, I will continue. Indonesia has a very large population and has great potential for human resources in terms of quantity. However, the quality of human resources in Indonesia is still relatively low, caused by the low quality of education. The reading interest of Indonesian people is categorized low, which is in the range of 0.1%. This means that out of 1,000 people, only 1% has an interest in reading. Due to the low interest in reading, people cannot know and follow the development of information and knowledge, so that Indonesian people tend to be left behind compared to other countries. Therefore, to be able to catch up with the progress that has been achieved by neighboring countries, it is necessary to cultivate an interest in reading from an early age. Next slide, please. Here we also want to add a table containing the titles of literature subjects in Indonesia with the most sanitation statistics. We can use the sanitation status in the literature as a reference for how many people that use literature as a reading resource. So if the level of sanitation is in a journal is high, then the journal can be said to have high readership as well. Here's the table we got from the statistics on Google Scholar. As you can see from the table beside, these are the data we quoted from the top publication in Indonesia on Google Scholars. There is no medical literature title that is in the top 10 on top citation level in Indonesia. From this, we can say that a person's level of literacy about medical literature in Indonesia is still very low.
My name is Gusti Agung Wahyu, Adinda Fidelia Tresna Putri, and I'm going to explain the summary on chapter 3. Next. And here is the point that should be highlighted on the summary of Practical Guide to Search for Medical Literature. The first one, what is a practical guide to search literature? Is it important for us? How do we apply the guides? Are there methods available? And does this have an impact on our country? So here's our summary. With the fast-paced growth of knowledge combined with development of technology, the world of literature has become very comprehensive, especially in medical literature. Since knowledge is dynamic, using the newest and updated literature is the best choice as a medical student. Searching medical literature will be very laborious and also requires a good accuracy to search the source that matches our research. Finding the appropriate publications can be time-consuming and demanding if not done by the Practical Guide to Search for Medical Literature. Thus, the Practical Guide to Search Medical Literature is very vital for us as learners. With a Practical Guide to Search Literature, it can be easier for researchers to find credible sources in conducting their research. There are 5 steps to assist us. The first one, starting with identifying the problem, assessing the best evidence by browsing, problem solving, critically appraising the evidence, and last one, the following act towards the result. In our country itself, Indonesia, is the lack of interest in literacy, especially in medical literature. But now, with the help of the guides, we highly hope that it can be easier for anyone to access medical literature, minimize the error spot, and hopefully increase their interest. And I think that's all about our group presentation about Practical Guide to Search for Medical Literature. We are apologize if there are any mistake in our presentation, and we will close this presentation with Purnamasidhi. Om Santi 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 Om.